Glenn Beck. Fearmonger that he is. So, really, may I just give a little bit of my history with Glenn Beck? Back when I was an Alex Jones fanatic, Glenn Beck was the guy who we talked about trying to figure out if Alex Jones or Glenn Beck was the controlled opposition. And now I realize they're both just assholes on the internet and on the news. So, what is Glenn Beck mad about today, being that he is an asshole on the news and on the internet? Well, right now, it's UBI.
I mean, we are creating this perfect storm right now where universal basic income is going to be embraced by people because they don't want to work anymore.
So, I'm going to go and say right now, why should anybody want to work? Let me just lay this out for a second, okay? There's this concept of the Protestant work ethic, where your ability to exist, your nature as your character as a person, is dictated by how much you want to work. But honestly, can I lay out some of the problems with that? One, why should anybody want to work? Work is that thing that we do because it is necessary. It is that thing we do because we have to get things done, and we have no other options. If other options are available, why should we not take that? Why should we not spend time enriching ourselves as opposed to enriching someone else? When you work in the United States right now, 9 times out of 10, because the majority of you are not owners of your own business, you are not working to enrich yourself. You're working to enrich someone else. Some CEO, some manager, some boss, some business owner. They are receiving effectively the fruits of your labor. You are receiving the table scraps at the end. People like Glenn Beck desperately want you to work. And right now, as things currently are, you do have to survive in most cases. But why should you, axiomatically? People like Glenn will probably argue that, well, nothing in the world is free, and you know what? You're right. Currently. But there are economic systems that we can work on where labor can be voluntary, where somebody can put in time to make sure that things are functioning for everyone, and we can be fine. Where the labor that people put in is labors of love, and not labors of, well, there was a deadline today and I had to get it done. That world is possible. We could get there, but as it stands right now, we live in a world where what's called the Protestant work ethic is viewed as the greatest thing in the world. So I'm going to lay out 2 types of people for you, okay? And you're going to give me your immediate response to these 2, and I'll give you mine. So, first type of person. This person works 40 hours a week, sometimes 60, maybe even 80 hours a week. They are not home that often, but they are always doing everything they can on the job. Now, I'm going to lay out another person. This person draws. This person creates art for 20 hours a week, 30 hours a week, what have you. What's the first impression of both of these people? Here in the South, the person who draws 30 hours a week, most of the time, people will say they're wasting their time. They'll ask what your plans are with those drawings, what you plan to do with any of that. What are you trying to accomplish with these drawings? What are you trying to do with it? Whereas the person who's working 40 to 80 hours a week, everybody's got to work. That's the response that I get here. I want to know in the chat and in the comment section what response you guys think of when you hear those things. We don't think about the amount of work that goes into developing the skill of drawing. We just see that drawing is happening and call it a waste of time. That's a thing that we get all the time here. You're wasting your time doing X, go get a real job. Hell, it's in my comment section all the time. People telling me that I'm wasting my time. I should go get a, quote, real job. Now, What kind of world does this create? It creates a world where people don't enrich themselves, because they are more concerned with enriching others, because enriching others is seen as work and therefore a good thing to do. But enriching yourself, that's seen as lazy, that's seen as being selfish, that's seen as being a bum, what have you. Also, there's nobody saying that UBI wouldn't still necessitate people working. UBI just is there to cover basic things, at least the UBI in the way that people like Andrew Yang envision it. In my opinion, UBI should be literally a universal basic income, everything you need to survive, and anything else past that, you should be able to work for if you are able to or want to. But even that creates some problems as well. Give me just a second. Okay. Basically, if you don't believe that people deserve food, then you do believe people deserve to starve. What have you. But Glenn, let's hear your problems.
And then if they did, they can't get a job.
That's incredible. I mean, it's all lining up to that same thing. I mean, and it's Andrew Yang's dream world here.
No, Andrew Yang's dream world is not one where nobody has to work. Andrew Yang's, at least the way he's conceptualized UBI in the beginning, is it's a feather fall. It's something to make sure that you've got a little bit of extra to function with. $1,000 a month of UBI does not cover anybody's expenses all the way.
Yeah, and let me tell you this. The problem with all of this is if you can't get starter and entry-level jobs, how do you find others? How do you replace people? You know, this is what Clear Channel did back in the 90s. They just fired all of these young people because the business wasn't viable anymore. So they fired all the weekenders and everybody else. Well, now there's nobody in the industry that's coming up in the industry. And so now you have this almost impossible thing to fill the jobs because you don't have any starter entry-level jobs.
So here's a problem that I need to address. The idea of the entry-level job. This idea needs to be done away with completely. There needs to be the idea that within any industry, there are entry-level positions where you learn, but entry-level jobs need to be removed as a category. Now, what do I mean when I say entry-level jobs? I mean stuff like when you think of the burger flipper at McDonald's, which, by the way, isn't a thing that exists because the machines cook the burgers on both sides at the same time, so burger flipping isn't a fucking job. That's not a thing that they've been doing for decades. But, point being, the idea of the entry-level job is the idea that there is some position that is meant to be temporary, but nonetheless exists. And when we have entry-level jobs, we tend to argue that these jobs also need to have lower salaries. And in some cases, sure, but will then justify that they don't need to have living wages at these levels. I'm fine with there being an entry position in a company where you learn the ropes and then move into your actual position, kind of like an ensign in the military. But I'm not okay with these jobs being things that don't pay enough to survive, and I'm not okay with there being entire classifications of necessary labor that are considered entry-level positions. Let's say you've got a McDonald's, and you've got somebody at the meat station, and the meat station is considered entry-level, right? Right? The French fry station is also an entry-level area for a person. Simple to learn, simple to execute, important for the business to function. Now, if you've got these areas that are important for the business to function, but they are also entry-level, we have a problem. Because in Glenn Beck's view, these are areas that are meant to be temporarily filled by people so that they can then move on to bigger and better things later. But if they are essential pieces for the business to function, why are they operating as, quote, entry-level positions, as positions for people to fill temporarily? You cannot fill a business with positions that are required for the business to function, but are all considered temporary. running a business all on temporary labor, unless that business is meant to create a single project and then be done, like, say, construction, or even in some cases, video game development. In areas like that, temporary labor is somewhat more understandable because people are functioning on a project-to-project basis. There's not a project-to-project basis in something like McDonald's or something like Walmart. These are positions that need to be filled in perpetuity. Temporary positions should be designed to be temporary and designed to not be necessary for a business to function. That's not how they operate right now. Many of these temporary positions, though, that involve very simple mechanical skills, whatever that means by your definition, are also things that are being replaced by machinery. A lot of cashiering positions are being replaced by self-checkout. Cashiering positions, even in fast food, are being replaced by kiosks. This is perfectly normal and acceptable. Any argument against kiosks and self-checkout replacing these things is effectively an argument against having a factory make shoes versus having an individual cobbler make a shoe in your village. It's an argument against the progression of technology, against the efficiency that we gain when we improve our methods of creating goods. However, there's a problem created with this. So, with a factory that might need, let's just say this is an incredibly automated factory. This is a hypothetical factory that does not yet exist, but everything in it is so thoroughly automated that it is able to produce 10,000 shoes every day, and it's able to do this with 10 to 20 employees running it. People that are just throwing things into boxes, operating very quickly. It's able to run with a low amount of employees. This means that if we have, say, how many places do we have in America that need shoes? Oh, every city, every town. Every city and every town. Also, thank you very much for the raid, Pixie. But every city and every town that needed a shoe cobbler prior to the making of this factory, the individual cobblers in these towns might actually end up being out of business now. They cannot produce at the rate that the factory does, and they might not be able to produce at the quality that the factory does. Now we have a bunch of cobblers out of business who have to find more work. Now, there's nothing inherently wrong with the cobbler going out of business if the cobbler can get their funding from elsewhere. This is where something like UBI comes into play. You can piss and moan and be incredibly upset about an individual losing their job. But at the end of the day, if an individual's job is made obsolete because we have better technology, we need to accept that there needs to be a way for them to function. And the argument cannot be they get a new job. Because if this is a cobbler who's been working for 40 years as a cobbler, they might not have the ability to just get a new job. They're over 60 years old now, likely. They are not going to be just going and getting a new job tomorrow. We need to have a system that can protect these people. UBI is a type of system to do that. Also, Pixie has redeemed an OWO for 500 channel points. OWO! 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 And again, thank you very much for the raid. Everybody coming in here from Pixie Explains, my name is Suris. If you have not seen my content already, I cover philosophy, politics, religion, and also I do a lot of gaming. Right now, we are talking about Glenn Beck, who's very upset that jobs are being made obsolete, and as a result, people are arguing more in favor of UBI. And I'm trying to point out that UBI is kind of something that we need to be talking about anyway, as long as we have a society that functions on money and goods, and we have fewer and fewer jobs available as automation takes over. We need to have ways for people to support themselves. We can't just accept that money is going to pool into fewer and fewer hands and just let our society become impoverished. And we can't just ignore technological advances. We have to have some kind of middle ground. We have to have something that both allows technological advances to happen, but also supports the people who are becoming disenfranchised by the industry moving forward. But back to Glenn.
How do you grow the next talent? It's just this nasty cycle that we're beginning.
Okay, now there's his little logo thing. Okay, so really you didn't have anything else to say there except how do we grow the next talent? Again, in an ideal world, the way you would grow the next talent for your industry is having temporary positions that are meant to be temporary, that are not meant to be necessary positions within your company that can be eliminated by machinery. Also, our definition of entry-level jobs needs to probably be somewhat fluid. Thank you very much for gifting these subs out, Jake3D. But our definition of entry-level job needs to be fluid. If entry-level job includes things like cashiering, includes things like flipping the burger at McDonald's until the machinery allows us to cook it all in one go, then eventually we will have no entry-level jobs. True, but if we are more capable of broadening our definition of entry-level jobs, broadening the types of jobs and fields that are available to people, then we have less of a problem. You don't have shrinking entry-level jobs so much as you have a hierarchy moving forward. But again, the biggest problem at hand here is that I think Glenn is trying to frame these issues as bad, not because entry-level positions are being lost, not because people are actually going to be out of work. He thinks that people not working is the problem. But people not working, in my opinion, should be the goal. Once we get to the point where everything is automated and can be tackled by machinery that could have been made decades ago by our forebears, there's only going to be a few jobs left. Jobs of governance, jobs of creating new machinery, which even that may be automated by that point, jobs of maintaining the machinery that we have, but even that maintenance might be automated by that point. CGP Grey had a wonderful video about automation and its inevitability, and how even certain things like the arts can eventually become automated. There are bots that will create their own music, and the music is unique to each and every individual creation. Even programming becomes an automated job eventually. How do we take care of people in a society where everything becomes automated, knowing that eventually that is where many things are going? There are industries that in my lifetime will be dead. The newspaper industry, by the time I'm dead, will be a relic. It will be gone. Cable television, by the time I'm dead, will probably be dead with me, as it's been replaced largely by streaming services. People who work in these fields need places to go, and there are fewer and fewer places to go as certain parts of technology either become more automated or move forward. We need a way to help these people. And I think the real issue we come down to is that people like Glenn have a difference of opinion over what the priority is. Glenn thinks that people need to work because to him, people working is good. I think people need to be provided for because to me, people having the opportunity to enrich themselves is good. And therein lies the difference. I don't find value in work for work's sake. I think work as something that somebody wants to do to enrich themselves is perfectly fine. But work as something that you are needing to do to enrich someone else so that you can survive is nothing more than a catch-22 where nobody wins but your employer. But Glenn wants to perpetuate that kind of society. And I don't think that's a healthy thing to do. But that's just me and my opinions on UBI and Glenn Beck and all that shit. And also, please remember, if you're watching, the definitions of UBI are not constrained to Andrew Yang's version of UBI. There are other versions of UBI that can be talked about, other implementations, other formulations for it, besides the baseline $1,000 a month that replaces our social services that already exist version that Andrew Yang has proposed. So if you're going to have the discussion in the comment section later about UBI, please understand that if you keep the conversation to Andrew Yang, you are being incredibly disingenuous. But with that said, everyone, thank you for watching. Insert end of video tagline here. And please subscribe if you haven't already.